one of the things that often doesn't get talked about with Bitcoin is the governance, right? So everyone is focused on the technology itself and kind of how that is executed. What is so special about the governance of this digital currency?
So, governance of Bitcoin is not formally defined, and I would argue that in a way it is a strength rather than a weakness. Technically, the governance has to do a lot sort of with the Bitcoin improvement processes and how those get proposed and how those get reviewed, how those get added in, etc. It's a very conservative, extremely meticulous process, which I consider a strength. A lot of people consider that, or a lot of people complain that Bitcoin is not evolving or Bitcoin is too slow. And to me, those people are sort of exhibiting high time preference and impatience. I think the altcoin boom and the ICO boom, a lot of the blockchain boom as well, has its origins in part because of this. True Bitcoiners understand that this isn't a 6-year get-rich-quick scheme, but it can be an 80-year project. And it's something that perhaps will continue going on until the end of our lives. And so every changes to the system need to be extremely careful. I like to compare it to like a nuclear reactor or a heart surgery or like a moon mission, because there's a lot at stake. More than $100 billion already, and potentially tens of trillions of dollars someday, right? And so this, because it is software, it lends itself to flexibility. This malleability has allowed us to create a money that is harder and sounder than gold and fiat, of course. But at the same time, this malleability is also makes it fragile in a number of other ways. And sort of because of this, and precisely because it is software, we need to be extremely careful. But the governance process of Bitcoin is what Pierre Rochard calls a P2P anarchic network governance. And the fact that it is slow to change is something that really makes Bitcoin far stronger than everything else. And the number one reason, and I can give dozens of reasons, but the number one reason why altcoins are far behind Bitcoin is precisely because they are much more centralized in relative terms, and everything about it is much easier to change. And currencies, first and foremost, are all about trust. As I like to repeatedly say, these crypto assets are, unlike many people sort of in the VC world, San Francisco, California, they think of these things as software platforms. They try to apply the late zeros, early 10 sort of tech paradigms to this thing. But really, to me, it's a monetary phenomenon. In very loose terms, I like to describe these things as digital monetary metals. To me, that's sort of arguably the closest metaphor for now. I like to even say that they aren't, Bitcoin being compared to digital gold is an understatement. And really what it is digital monetary nuclear weapons. Because if you really dig into the third and the fourth order game theoretic effects that are likely to arise when this thing gets just a little bit bigger, which to me it inevitably will, there is just so much that it is going to cause and reorganize in this world.
Absolutely. And so, one thing that I think about a lot is if you were to draw a spectrum, and on the left side you have the slow development cycles and kind of carefulness of Bitcoin, and on the right side you have optimization for innovation, right? And I think that Bitcoin obviously is pretty far on the left side of that spectrum, and a lot of the ICOs and altcoins, etc., are pretty far on the right side, right? They want to quickly build something, they want to get it out, they're trying and experimenting and innovating and doing all these things. And so what ends up happening is, because Bitcoin's speed of development is slower, more methodical, kind of more intentional, it can pull from the things that work on the innovative end, and it can avoid the landmines of the things that don't work, right? Do you agree with that?
I agree with that, and I would even add that sort of the a lot of people who've started altcoins or sort of gotten into that wave in the last couple of years come from the technology world or the startup world, venture world, and sort of one of the schools of thought, i.e. move fast and break things, it completely does not work for cryptocurrencies because once again, this is not like a dog walking app or a dating app or like a food picture app, right? And you need to be extremely careful with this. We want to make it so that a huge chunk of the world financial system eventually gets absorbed into this one digital currency. And so conservatism is definitely the way to go here. Some people would even argue that we need to even be more careful and review even in an even slower fashion. But I definitely agree with you that Bitcoin can definitely take whatever, if there's ever something that is actually useful and truly innovative that any altcoin does better in any capacity or function, Bitcoin can eventually adopt that for sure. However, and this is why I believe that sort of privacy coins or coins with more programmability, etc., they really don't stand a lot of, they don't really stand a chance against Bitcoin at this point in time, because I believe people will soon realize the truth, and the truth is that the value, and aka the price, is determined by the monetary premia. And the monetary premia is determined by a combination of the current monetary network effects, monetary liquidity, saleability, marketability, recognizability, the Lindy effect, and first and foremost, the credibility of the monetary policy and just the general trust. And in all of these in all of these criteria, Bitcoin is so far ahead than everything else that the way I see it, yes, there may be 2 or 3 more sort of mini altcoin bubbles, particularly as more people sort of enter into the space. There's a natural sort of incentive to sort of find the next big thing, of course. But I believe that once Bitcoin goes above several $1 trillion or so, a big divergence will happen. And really, all the other cryptocurrencies will be similar to what penny stocks are to the big caps in the equity world right now.
Got it. And so would it be fair to say that if you take that same spectrum, on the left side, you've got security, and on the right side, you have, low levels of security. Bitcoin conservatism pushes it on the extreme end of the left side around security, right? And do you think that these other blockchains, tokens, etc., are lacking focus on security, or do you think they're making a rational trade-off between security and, let's call it, innovation or something like that?
I think it's a rational trade-off, and the reason for that is because if you even want to compete in Bitcoin in any capacity, then it's really difficult to compete against it in terms of sort of the monetary disinflation, which really is the most important thing here.
Well, so what you're saying is, if somebody wants to compete against Bitcoin, right, another project, you can't beat it on security today, right, because of the network effect, and then you can't beat it on the monetary policy, and therefore you have to go to other areas in which you may be able to build a competitive advantage.
That is most of the thinking in sort of altcoin creators' heads. Mm-hmm. And I believe that it has worked a little bit, not really. Mm-hmm. It might even work a little bit in the upcoming waves, but it is doomed to fail eventually.
It's like winning the second or third most important aspect, right? It's like saying, look, the most important thing around security.
It's like 6th or 7th, I would say, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's super interesting.